Phil Spencer is not leaving Microsoft.
No.
But what is Phil Spencer saying?
Phil Spencer has been out there giving some interviews about
as Phil Spencer does,
about the next box. They've been talking about their xCloud business and all the things that they are doing. There was a quote going around this week about him basically saying that he sees Microsoft's, at least in the gaming space, their biggest competitors upcoming as Google and Amazon, which some people took as a light diss on Nintendo and Sony. But if you read the actual quote, he's saying it's not that he doesn't take them seriously or want to disrespect them, but it's that he does not believe that the traditional format wars of consoles and platforms is really what the future of competition is going to look like.
Yeah.
And this tracks with the sense that, you know, they have put in a huge investment into their cloud stuff and Azure and all of that. And so going so far as getting Sony to sign on board to use their services for whatever kind of cloud shit they're cooking up, assuming that ever comes to fruition. Yeah. And I mean, look, you look at the current landscape, Sony, Nintendo, and Microsoft are not exactly enemies in the way that they had been in the past. They're at the very least cordial and interacting with one another in a way that the old console wars never would have allowed for.
Some more than others. Sony getting there.
Sony is still the weird kind of maybe not entirely bought in on this thing group.
Whereas Nintendo used to be that person.
Yeah.
But not, or that entity. But you're absolutely right, and I think it becomes clear when you look at it in context, like you said, of the Phil Spencer is saying this is not necessarily... I'm not necessarily talking about Microsoft, specifically the licensing of games for our console.
Yeah.
We're talking about how to deliver games to a broader audience through back-end architecture and systems, and that's where Google and Amazon have invested millions in their infrastructure.
Yeah, and there's a great quote in here where he says, I don't want to be in a fight over format wars with those guys while Amazon and Google are focusing on how to get gaming to 7 billion people around the world. Ultimately, that's the goal.
Yeah, and they see that.
Yeah.
They know that, like, China, huge audience. You know, the people who don't necessarily have the ability to buy consoles for whatever import prices or whatever. They see the infrastructure problems of the internet. I think they're bigger problems than, hey, we've had this console exclusive.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, as much as we have clowned on Google for their initial offering and their, let's just say, the company's penchant for punting on projects that don't hit the way they expect them to, I don't think Google's going to disappear right away. Even if Stadia, even if Stadia itself does not become the thing,
yeah. their back end,
they're still going to find a way to get the game industry to buy into the tech that they want to push.
And that's the kind of amazing thing about Stadia. The tech generally seems to be working.
Yeah,
for what their
platform
offering.
sucks.
Their platform and their offering is lacking.
Yeah.
But if they can hook into Sony and get people on board, then Sony could deliver its platform.
And meanwhile, Amazon is just kind of sitting off in the background, everyone knowing they're doing something, but without having shown really much of their hand at this point as far as like what that's going to entail and how they're targeting it.
What Lumberjack? What was their...
yeah.
Jeez, I don't know.
Yes, I think that's what it was called.
They hired a bunch of people at some point, and those people I feel like just disappeared.
Yeah, no, anyone who goes to Amazon is never heard from again.
Some were friends of mine.
Yeah, what are they doing?
I don't know. My text it's still green.
Oh, it's just 3 bubbles?
Mm-hmm. Never went there.
Yeah, so... interesting quote. That's about it, really. But you know,
but it just gives you a sense of like what their vision of the future looks like, and it's not one where Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo is the end all be all rivalry that it has been in the past.
If you think of Microsoft as a services company, I think that makes a little more sense.
I think all these companies are about to start thinking of themselves as services companies first and foremost in the future.